Have you ever felt the suffocating weight of silence, as if the very air around you conspired to hold its breath? That evening, when my cousin Camilla came to visit, I found myself standing at the precipice of such a silence, one that would soon twist into a night of inexplicable terror. It was a humid Friday in Sao Paulo, the kind of night where the streets of Jardimangela were thick with the scent of impending rain. I was 14, teetering on the edge of adolescence, a time when the ordinary quickly transforms into the extraordinary. Camilla, a year younger than me, had always been a source of excitement. Her adventurous spirit ignited a spark within me that I often struggled to channel. Yet, there was something different about her visit that night. An unspoken tension hung in the air, as if the universe had donned a cloak of foreboding. As we settled into my dimly lit living room, shadows danced along the walls, cast by the flickering light of an old lamp that had seen better days. The furniture, worn and familiar, seemed to lean toward us, eager to listen to our whispered secrets. We spent the early hours sharing stories of schoolyard crushes and ghostly legends that echoed through the alleys of our neighborhood. The stories were meant to amuse, but they also served as a conduit for the unease that was beginning to wrap itself around us like a thick fog. Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. The air crackled with an energy I couldn't quite place. The power went out, plunging the room into darkness, the kind of blackness that swallows sound and thought alike. I could hear Camilla's breath hitch. It mirrored my own, a shared heartbeat in the void. Outside, the rain began to fall, a rhythmic patter that felt like nature's own heartbeat, drumming against the roof in a chaotic symphony. "Let's go outside," Camilla suggested, her voice a mixture of thrill and fear. I hesitated, knowing all too well the stories about the old abandoned house at the end of our street, Rua dos Três Irmãos. The locals said it was haunted, filled with shadows that moved on their own, and whispers that carried through the wind. Yet the idea of exploring it sent a rush of adrenaline through my veins, an intoxicating blend of fear and excitement. As we stepped into the rain-soaked night, the streets shimmered under the sporadic flashes of distant lightning, the world around us transforming into a warped reflection of reality. With every step toward the house, I felt an unsettling pull, as if the very ground beneath us was alive, thrumming with secrets best left undisturbed. The trees lining the street loomed like sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky, urging us to turn back. But I pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity and the thrill of companionship. Memories of my childhood flooded back, moments spent in the embrace of my family, tales shared around the dinner table, where laughter drowned out whispers of fears and regrets. I had always been the brave one among us, or so I thought, until that night when the shadows of my past began to intertwine with the darkness ahead. As we approached the dilapidated structure, a sense of dread washed over me. The house loomed before us, its broken windows like dark eyes watching our every move. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As we stood before the old house, my heart raced, a wild drum echoing in my ears. The rain fell harder now, each drop a reminder of the world I was stepping away from. A world filled with comfort and safety. Camilla's grip tightened on my arm, and I could feel her trembling beside me, caught between the thrill of our venture and the instinct to flee. "Maybe we should just go back," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. I could see the fear etched on her face, shadows playing tricks on her features. But the pull of the house was undeniable. I felt a compulsion to uncover its mysteries, as if it called to me, promising revelations hidden within its decaying walls. "No, come on," I urged, forcing a confidence I didn't truly feel. "What's the worst that could happen?" With that, I took a step forward, and Camilla followed, albeit reluctantly. As we crossed the threshold, the door creaked open, a sound that echoed like a warning through the stillness. Inside, the musty air enveloped us, thick, heavy, and laced with the scent of damp wood and mildew. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I could make out the outlines of furniture draped in sheets, like ghosts waiting to be unveiled. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "This place is just old," I said, not entirely convincing myself. But as we moved deeper into the house, the silence became oppressive. It felt like we were intruding on something sacred, something that had been sleeping for years. I glanced at Camilla, her eyes wide with apprehension, and felt a pang of guilt. I had led us here, and now I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, sending us both jumping. "What was that?" Camilla whispered, her voice trembling. I scanned the room, searching for an explanation, but all I could see were shadows. "Probably just the wind," I said, though I had no real belief in my own words. We ventured further, drawn to the source of the noise. As we turned a corner, we stumbled into a room that felt different, charged somehow. The air was colder here, and the atmosphere thickened with an almost tangible weight. In the center of the room stood a figure, half hidden in the shadows. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a girl, maybe a bit older than us, with wild hair and eyes that glimmered like shards of glass. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice low and urgent, filled with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. "Why not?" I asked, curiosity piquing despite my better judgment. "What's going on?" "My name is Fernanda," she replied, glancing nervously toward the door. "You don't understand. This place is dangerous. It's not just abandoned, it's alive." Camilla shifted beside me, her eyes darting between Fernanda and the dark corners of the room. "What do you mean?" she asked, fear tightening her voice. "There are things here," Fernanda continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Things from the past that don't want to be disturbed. They feed off fear, and they're hungry." I felt a cold wave wash over me, the gravity of her words settling in the pit of my stomach. The rational explanations I had clung to began to unravel, leaving only a gnawing dread. "What do we do?" Camilla asked, her voice barely above a whisper, and I could see the panic rising in her eyes. Fernanda's gaze hardened, and I could see the resolve in her posture. "We need to leave, now, before it's too late." But just as she turned toward the door, a low growl emanated from the shadows behind us, deep and threatening. I felt my blood run cold, the darkness around us pulsating, alive with menace. The house had stirred, and we were not merely visitors anymore, we were prey. In that moment I realized that my bravado had been a mask for my fear. Now, confronted with the supernatural, I had to make a choice. Face the darkness or flee into the storm outside, where the rain might wash away the horrors we had just uncovered. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel the weight of our decision pressing down on us, a harbinger of the terror that was yet to come. As the growl reverberated through the room, my instincts screamed at me to run, but I was paralyzed by a mix of terror and an inexplicable curiosity. The shadows seemed to stretch and sway, reaching out toward us as if they were alive. I could feel the weight of Fernanda's urgency, the raw desperation in her eyes, and it ignited something within me. A flicker of recognition. "Wait," I said, my voice trembling but louder than before. "I need to know what you mean by alive. What happened here?" Fernanda hesitated, glancing back at the door, then at the darkness behind us. You really don't know, do you? Her voice was soft, almost pitying. This house, it holds memories, painful ones. It remembers what happened to those who lived here. It feeds on the echoes of their suffering. My mind raced, a whirlwind of fragmented memories surfacing like ghosts from the past. The nightmares I had as a child, the feeling of being watched when I was alone, the shadows that seemed to dance just beyond my sight. I had always brushed them off as figments of my imagination, symptoms of a mind too eager to conjure fears. But now, standing in this cursed place, those memories felt too real to deny. Why does it feel so familiar? I murmured, almost to myself. When I was little, I dreamed of a house just like this. It was filled with shadows, and I could hear whispers. I thought I was just being a kid. Fernanda's expression darkened, and for a moment, I could see the weight of her own burdens reflected in her eyes. You're not the only one with a past tied to this place. Everyone who enters feels it, but for some, it's more than just a feeling. It's a connection. I glanced at Camilla, who looked equally bewildered. What do you mean? She asked, her voice quaking with confusion. The house is drawing you in for a reason, Fernanda said, taking a step closer, her intensity palpable. It knows you. It knows what you've lost. My heart stumbled at her words. What do you mean? I haven't lost anything. Not here, anyway. But as I said it, I felt the truth gnawing at my insides. The memories weren't just vague fears. They were rooted in the loss of my childhood home, the place where my mother had disappeared without a trace. Your mother, Fernanda said, her voice dropping to a whisper. She was connected to this house. I can feel it. The house remembers her, and it wants you to remember too. A cold wave of realization crashed over me. My mother had vanished the day we moved into a house that looked eerily similar to this one. The feeling of dread that had followed me throughout my life was not mere coincidence. It was a tether to something darker, a mystery I had buried deep within myself. Run, Fernanda shouted suddenly, her voice snapping me back to the present. But I was still reeling from the revelation that shook my very core. Before I could react, the growl morphed into a guttural roar, shaking the very foundation of the house. Shadows surged forward, and I knew then that this was no ordinary haunted house. We were being drawn into something much larger than ourselves, some ancient, sinister force that thrived on our fears and regrets. As I stood there, torn between fleeing and confronting the truth, I felt the walls close in around me, a suffocating embrace that threatened to swallow us whole. The storm outside raged on, but the tempest within the house was far more menacing. I realized we had only just begun to unravel the threads of a mystery that was woven into the very fabric of our lives, and the next choice we made could end in salvation or doom. My heart raced as the growl echoed in my ears, merging with the pounding of the storm outside. I felt the weight of my own history pressing down on me, a tangible force that threatened to crush me under its enormity. I could see it in Fernanda's eyes, a blend of fear and determination. She knew the stakes, and I was about to find out if I had the courage to face the truth. Fernanda, what do we do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The shadows danced closer, tendrils of darkness reaching out as if they were alive. I could feel them wrapping around my ankles, trying to pull me into their depths. Stay close, she replied, her tone firm. We need to confront whatever is feeding off our fears. It's the only way to break its hold on us. Camilla was shaking beside me, her face pale and eyes wide. I can't do this, she breathed, her voice laced with panic. We need to get out of here. But I felt an urgency deep within me, a calling that I could no longer ignore. "No, we can't run, not now." I turned to Fernanda, my resolve hardening. "You said the house remembers my mother, then it has to have answers. We have to confront it." Suddenly, the air shifted, thickening with an oppressive energy that sent shivers down my spine. The growling morphed again, this time into a cacophony of voices, whispers of despair and sorrow that echoed through the walls. "She's here," I realized, the realization hitting me like a slap. "My mother. She's part of this." Before I could process the implications, a shadow lunged forward, a monstrous figure emerging from the darkness. It was a grotesque amalgamation of the fears I had buried, a twisted version of my childhood home, my mother's silhouette merging with the shadows. The entity loomed over us, its eyes glowing with malice, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat. "Stay together!" Fernanda shouted, gripping my arm tightly. But I felt the pull of the entity, a magnetic force that threatened to tear us apart. The shadows swirled around us, whispering my mother's name, taunting me with the memories I had long tried to forget. "Mom!" I screamed, feeling the words rip from my chest. "What happened to you?" In that moment the shadows recoiled, the growl transforming into a mournful wail that reverberated through my bones. I could see flashes of my mother's face, her eyes filled with fear and sadness, as if she were reaching out to me through the veil of darkness. "Listen to her," Fernanda urged, her voice breaking through the chaos. "You have to let go of the fear, embrace the truth." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to confront the pain I had hidden for so long. I felt the shadows tighten their grip, but I pushed back, willing to face whatever lay ahead. "I won't let you control me," I yelled, my voice rising above the tumult. "I will find you, Mom. I will bring you back." The entity roared, a sound that shook the very foundation of the house, but I stood my ground, my heart pounding with a fierce determination. I was done running. It was time to face the darkness and uncover the truth that had haunted me for years. The shadows writhed around us, and I knew that the moment of reckoning was upon us. With one last surge of courage, I reached out toward the swirling mass of darkness. "Show me!" I cried, demanding an answer, an end to the torment. And as I did, I felt the air crackle with energy, the shadows swirling into a vortex around me, ready to reveal the secrets I had long sought. As the vortex of shadows swirled around me, I felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through my veins, an electric pulse that ignited every nerve in my body. The growls and wails crescendoed into a deafening roar, and I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for the impact of whatever truth was about to be unleashed. In an instant, the shadows collapsed inward, drawing me into their depths. I felt the cold grip of despair tighten around my heart, but I clung to the flickering image of my mother's face, her eyes pleading for me to understand. "You have to let go." I heard her voice echo, not in words, but in the very essence of the shadows. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the dimly lit hallway of the house. Instead, I stood in a vast expanse, a place that felt both familiar and foreign. Memories flooded back, moments of laughter, warmth, and a love that had been overshadowed by grief. I saw my mother standing before me, her silhouette bathed in ethereal light. "I'm here, my love," she whispered, her voice wrapping around me like a warm embrace. But the moment was fleeting. The shadowy entity shrieked, contorting in agony as the light began to consume it. I felt a sharp pain slice through my chest, a reminder of everything I had lost. I was being torn between two worlds, one filled with love and the other steeped in darkness and fear. "No!" I screamed, fighting against the pull of the shadows. "I won't lose you again." With every ounce of strength I could muster, I reached out toward my mother. "I choose to remember." The entity howled, disintegrating into a flurry of dark mist, and in that moment I felt an overwhelming rush of clarity. The storm outside ceased, and the house exhaled a long-held breath, releasing the tension that had gripped it for so long. I staggered back, gasping for air, my heart racing. Fernanda and Camilla emerged from the shadows, their faces etched with concern. "Are you okay?" Fernanda asked, rushing to my side. I nodded, though I knew the truth. I was not entirely unscathed. The emotional scars would remain, a reminder of the past I could no longer ignore. Camilla trembled beside us, her eyes darting between the remnants of darkness and the fading light. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Is it really over?" I took a deep breath, still feeling the echoes of pain in my chest. "I faced it," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I don't think it's gone for good." As we gathered ourselves, I caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the corner of my eye, a fragment of shadow that darted away, leaving a lingering chill in the air. A sense of unease settled over me, a reminder that not all was resolved. Fernanda's eyes narrowed, her brows furrowing in thought. "If it's still out there, we need to prepare. This isn't over." The weight of her words settled heavily on my shoulders. I could feel the shadows still lurking in the corners of my mind, whispering secrets and half-truths. "We'll find a way," I vowed, glancing at my friends. "Together." Yet, as we stepped outside into the storm's aftermath, I couldn't shake the feeling that a new chapter was about to begin, one filled with more questions than answers. The storm had subsided, but the shadows had not vanished completely. And as I looked to the horizon, I sensed the looming presence of a greater mystery yet to unfold, a puzzle that would continue to haunt me until I uncovered the truth about my mother and the darkness that still lingered. As we stepped out of the remnants of the storm, the air hung heavy with a tension that felt alive. The sky had cleared, but an unsettling stillness enveloped us, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I glanced back at the house, its silhouette stark against the twilight, and a chill skittered down my spine. The shadows were still there, whispering at the edges of my consciousness, teasing me with fragmented memories and fears. I could feel them lurking, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. It was a reminder that the battle was far from over, and the threat was evolving. Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A shadow darting just beyond the tree line, too quick for me to comprehend. "Did you see that?" I asked, heart racing. Fernanda nodded, her expression grave. "We need to get inside. It's not safe out here." But as we turned to retreat, I felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to follow the shadow. "Wait," I called out, stepping forward against my friend's protests. The darkness beckoned, its allure undeniable. I could feel it resonating deep within me, a call to embrace the very thing I had fought against. The moment I stepped beyond the safety of the light, I was engulfed. The shadows wrapped around me like a shroud, whispering promises of power, of understanding, of the truth I had sought. I gasped, the cold seeping into my bones, and in that instant I realized the entity had not been defeated. It had merely been waiting for me to succumb. As I stood there, surrounded by darkness, I felt my mother's face slip from my memory, her love replaced by a growing hunger for the shadows. I was becoming part of the very darkness I had fought against. With a chilling clarity, I understood what I had lost. Not only my mother, but my very soul. And as I surrendered, I felt the shadows smile, an insidious triumph echoing in the void. In that moment, I was reborn, not as a savior, but as a vessel for the darkness, forever chained to its sinister whispers. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.